Hello, everyone, and welcome to Walking with Faith. I'm your host, Taryn Palacios, founder of a Christian website, lovingwithallmyheartandsoul.com, and a Christian children's book author of a book entitled Our Purpose. Today, I have a special guest, and I'm really excited to have her on my show. This is Pamela Salgado, and she is from San Diego. Welcome. In a little bit, I'm going to have her introduce herself more in depth, but I do want to say that she is a physician for over 10 years, loves to work with children, and what I find most interesting, and the reason I really I'm excited to have her here on my show, is that she is pursuing her master's degree in pastoral studies. So her hope is to become a chaplain physician assistant. So welcome, Pamela, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on this show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited. I'm always interviewing other people, so I was really excited to hear that you wanted to interview me because I guess I got a lot to say. But the question was what a physician assistant is?
Well, yeah, just to give us a little bit about who you are.
Oh, okay. So I've been a physician assistant for the past 10 years, and currently I work in pediatric ear, nose, and throat, head and neck surgery. And I have 3 little girls. They're 7, 5, and 2. And they all go, well, my older 2 are in Catholic summer school right now. So my husband is a head and neck surgeon. We do not work together. We didn't meet on the job, but we've been married for 10 years. And, but yeah, that's pretty much about me. And I also I have the desire to become a chaplain. And what a chaplain is basically somebody that provides spiritual support to anybody in a hospital setting. Some chaplains work in a military setting. Some chaplains work in jails, and it's just more to have that spiritual support. And so that's basically what a chaplain is. And what a physician assistant is a healthcare provider that provides healthcare services to patients, just as a physician does. The only difference is that we are overseen by a physician, and I work autonomous, so I basically work on my own the majority of the time, but the physician assistants can work in any field. So my first job 10 years ago was working in gynecologic oncology. I was a first assistant surgery where I worked in big, huge ovarian cancer resections in the operating room. I also ran it on patients in the hospital, and I worked on call. And then over the past 9 years, I've worked primarily in head and neck surgery. And so that currently, I'm only working in outpatient clinical setting where I see patients with ailments from ear infections to nosebleeds to little babies with breathing issues. And I do a lot of procedures and things in clinic. And previously, I did take call and worked in the emergency room. And I have a lot of crazy stories about my call experience that I had in the middle of the night with airway emergencies and whatnot.
So you basically treat from kids to adults in ear, nose, and throat right now?
Currently, I work at the Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego, so I usually only see up to 18 to 20-year-olds, but newborns on up to that age. But I have worked in adult head and neck surgery before for a couple of years, and that was mainly adults, but I did still see kids at that time as well.
Wow. So let's take it back a little bit. I'm glad you clarified about your husband and you, because yes, logically you assume from your introduction that, okay, he's a surgeon and you work with one. And so, yeah, did y'all meet on the job? Did y'all, work together? So you did not meet on the job and you do not work together. Is that a good thing?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a break, right, from your husband. I know a lot of couples that work together and they just ride to school, because I'm a teacher, but they ride to school together and then they drive back home together. And I think, oh, that's a little bit too much. I love my husband, but we need time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that you described what a chaplain is, because I didn't know much about it. You hear it and you automatically think something spiritual. But a chaplain, there's in so many different sectors, right? And so you want to be a chaplain in the medical area. So does a chaplain, because when I looked up the definition, it said something about a lay person. So to be a chaplain, do you have to have schooling and a degree, or just anyone can say they're a chaplain giving spiritual advice?
That's a really great question. So I didn't know a lot about the road to becoming a chaplain until most recently. And there are different types of chaplains. So my goal is to be a Catholic chaplain. And what a Catholic chaplain, if you go to the National Chaplain website, it talks about all the requirements, and you have to have a master's in theology or pastoral studies. And so that's a 1 to 3 year commitment on top of, doing a chaplaincy residency, which is usually about a year where you're working full time alongside another chaplain, and you're working in all these various settings and figuring out what type of chaplain you want to be, whether, like I talked about before, whether you're in a military setting, a jail, or a hospital setting, or hospice.
Oh, that's very interesting. I was going to ask about that because I figured, if you're getting a master's, sometimes they have like either residencies or hours that you have to put in. So then you do get to go on the field and work under somebody, like an internship. And that's and that's a good thing too, because then you find your niche. You find, what calls you. So on that, what called you to want to be a chaplain in the first place?
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it as short as I can. It started in my first job in gynecologic oncology. I would round at around 6:30 in the morning on our patients that we were discharging. And when I was in the PACU, that's where our patients are in the pre-op area right before we're taken back to the operating room. There was always a woman that was at Mercy San Juan Hospital in Sacramento, where I trained. And she was always talking to the patients before surgery. And then I would say hi to her. And then I was like, so what is your job here? Because I saw her every morning. I thought she was just, some lay person walking around talking to families. I didn't really know. And she goes, oh, I'm a chaplain. And so she told me that as a chaplain, especially at a Catholic hospital, she can really, go up to any families and go talk to them and pray with them. And so that was kind of the first seed that implanted in me. I was like, oh, you get paid for that? Like, you get paid to pray with people? Wow. And the fact that it was a woman who wasn't a nun that had this kind of ability to have that authority to just go up to somebody, be like, hey, do you want to pray with us? You have surgery? Okay, let's pray. And they would be like saying the Our Father or praying the rosary. And I'm just like, what? And so that was the first time that happened to me. That was before I had kids. This was 10 years ago. And then fast forward to, I would say right when I had my first baby. So my oldest is 7. So 7 years ago, I was 6 weeks out from having the baby, and I didn't really know anybody in San Diego. We had just lived here for a couple of years. And I really felt this need, like I had to get out of the house. I was getting really depressed, being lonely. I feel like being a mom is one of the loneliest times when you have your first kid. Like, I don't know anybody with kids. I'm sure you can relate, right?
Yes.
It's just really lonely. And so I was like, I need to go to church. I need to go to mass. And at the time, I think my husband was on call, so he couldn't come. But I had the baby, and I found a church. I was just looking at the times, and the church that I normally go to, St. Elizabeth's, had already had their mass. And so the next mass was a church called St. Thomas More, which was just a mile past my church. And so I'd never been to this church before. I walk up there, and I guess they were rebuilding the church. So it was like a gym that we were going to. And I have the baby, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to breastfeed her. She's going to have to nap. Oh, and so I'm just praying as I'm walking up there, and I see there's speakers outside. And I was like, what? Like, this no Catholic church I've ever been to has there been speakers outside where you can hear the mass. And I was like, oh, at that moment, like I had this sense of relief. Like, thank God I could come outside if the baby starts crying, or I could nurse outside with my nursing cover. And so I just felt at peace. And so, I'm sitting in mass, and like the baby gets a little bit fussy. So I go outside, and instead of having like your regular homily, the person who was speaking was the deacon. It was like a visiting deacon. And I'm not familiar with the priest or the deacon anyways. And they were talking about when they were a chaplain. And I was like, what? And And so the baby, like I'm nursing the baby, I'm outside and I hear everything clearly because I'm right next to the speaker. And he talks about how one of his first jobs when he was in his residency for chaplaincy, he got a list of rooms, and his first room was like on the third floor, and it was for this teenager who was terminal with cancer. And so he was like, oh my gosh, how is this my first assignment? You know, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? So he walks in the room, and it's a Spanish speaking family. And it's only this really frail teenager that looked, you know, white as a ghost, really thin, laying in the bed. And right next to him is his grandmother, who only spoke Spanish, and she looked exhausted. And so he's like, why don't you, you know, go grab some food or some coffee, and I'll sit here with your grandson and we'll just sit and pray. And she's like, are you sure? Okay. So she leaves. And then so he talks to him and he says, so, you know, do you want to pray together? What can I do for you? And he said, I've never prayed before. Like, can you teach me how to pray? And I was like, oh my gosh, what? And he's like, well, you know, hindsight's 2020. I guess I could have taught him how to say the Our Father, but he said he felt in his heart that God was telling him, you need to talk to Jesus like he's your friend. Like, tell him what things that you want, things that you're sorry for, things that you're thankful for, and just talk to him like he's your buddy. And, you know, he sat there and he prayed with him for the first time in his entire life. He prayed. He taught him how to pray. And so, you know, he basically, you know, saved his soul before he died. I know.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing, when I heard that story, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the second instance I've heard of a chaplain. And then literally days later, I'm driving this is going to sound a little crazy because I believe in signs. And
no, it's not going to sound crazy because I'm so into that. I truly believe it. And I say that all the time. Every time the Holy Spirit talks to us, it's just this nudging. It's this constant, you see it everywhere. It catches your attention. It's the Holy Spirit. Go on.
And so I'm driving to the grocery store, and like, I never get to go out of the house without the baby because like, it's, you know, I'm always with her. I'm still I'm on maternity leave from work. And so I'm going to our store here is Vaughn's. It's like a Safeway, and it's literally a mile up the road from our house. So I'm driving and I pull to the stoplight right to turn into the parking lot. And the car in front of me in clear daylight, I wish I had my phone to take a picture. It said chaplain on it. It wasn't like no numbers, no letters or nothing. It said chaplain. And I was like, God, what are you trying to tell me? Do I need to be a chaplain? And so this is still like 7 years ago. And I'm like, nope, I'm a PA. I went to school for so long for this. I worked so hard. I'm not going to be a chaplain. You know, I just kind of brushed it off. And then again, another thing happened to me. And my husband had his 20-year high school reunion a few years ago. And he grew up in San Diego and I grew up in Northern California. So we get a babysitter. We have 2 kids at this point, and we go to this place downtown, and it was kind of this bar that they rented out. And he only went to his high school for like a year or 2 because his family moved in the middle of his high school. So he didn't really know a lot of people that well either. But I saw this really tall blonde girl that she drew my attention, and I just told him, I'm like, do you remember her? Like, I need you to introduce me to her. And I'm really shy. Like, I'm just not that person that just like, hey, hi, I'm Pam. What's your name? I'm going to be a chaplain. You know, like I don't normally do that. And so he's like, oh yeah, I remember her. I'll introduce you. And so we walk over and she's like drinking water, you know, like I don't really think anything. I introduce myself and she just has this air about her. Like I don't see auras, but I feel like she just omitted this like calmness about her. And I was like, so I told her I was a PA. I go, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I'm a hospice chaplain.
Wow.
And she starts telling me,
sign.
and she starts telling me that when her grandmother was in hospice, because she was taking care of her during the time, the nurses came to her every day. They would be there helping during her grandmother's final days. And they always told her, like, you really need to consider working as a nurse in hospice or doing a chaplaincy or something. And so as soon as her grandmother died, she found this chaplaincy hospice residency in Hawaii. And she moved to Hawaii for a year and became a a chaplain hospice worker.
Wow. Well, those were definite signs for you. So I'm glad you're listening to the calling.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not the end of the story though.
All right.
So the biggest thing that happened to me just a month or two ago. And I've had a lot of, I feel like it's been a lot of spiritual warfare, you know, especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I get up at like 3 a.m. and I'm like, I feel like I have to pray the rosary. And I had an instance where I kind of felt overcome with the Holy Spirit, and I was praying the rosary, and I was literally like down on my knees praying. And for like the end of COVID-19, for all the workers that are working in New York, especially during the time when it was really, really bad, and just very specific prayers. It was an intentional rosary. So for every 50 Hail Marys, this is how I pray the rosary. I say an intention. And so I was bawling, crying during this whole thing, like just so overwhelmed. And when I finished the rosary and finished all my prayers, I just felt a sense of relief. Like I was like, oh my gosh. And for the past 2 months prior to that, I had been trying to get a hold of our deacon from our church. His name is Deacon Jerry. And I had emailed him, I added him on Facebook, I messaged him on Facebook, and I've known him for the past 7 years. He's from Chicago. And I always would go to him for spiritual guidance, whether it was about Save the Storks, an organization that I volunteer for, or for, you know, issues just in general. Like I always went to him, but it was during the time where you could like call and like they weren't overwhelmed with patients and they weren't overwhelmed with going to the hospital and stuff like that. And I never really was able to get a hold of him for 2 months. And finally, right after I finished praying the rosary, I felt like I needed to email him one last time. I'm like, if I don't hear from him this time, I'm just gonna call and talk to the priest. Like I just felt like Deacon Jerry was just so, you know, he's married, he's like really down to earth. Not that the priest isn't. I love our priest. We just went golfing with him a couple weekends ago. But I really felt like I had this deep connection with him that I needed to talk to him about this whole chaplaincy thing, because it's like changing my career. Like, am I doing the right thing, you know? And so I emailed him, and then I finally was able to go back to bed. I wake up, I check my email at 8 o'clock in the morning, get an email from Deacon saying, can you meet at 1 p.m.? And that was it. And I'm like, thank God, finally. And so I responded yes. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call, and it's Deacon. And I was like, hi, Deacon Jerry. He goes, a couple of my meetings canceled. Can you meet right now? I'm like, yes, hold on. And I had like 2 Zoom calls for my kid's school, you know, and like have the baby, like I put on Daniel Tiger. I'm like, this is the time. I need this. And so the kids were occupied, and I'm talking to him for an hour. And he tells me everything I need to know. What I needed to major in, who I needed to connect with. He connected me with a chaplain, not a chaplain PA, but a chaplain that lives in the Midwest that he's close family friends with. He like gave me her name, said, I'm going to text her right when I get off the phone with you. She's probably going to call you in minutes. Like, this is, Jesus is telling you that this is for you. And he literally gave me all the wisdom I needed to know what to say to a family that is losing their 2-year-old to cancer, what I say to a family that loses your child to a car accident when you show up at the hospital and you have to counsel the family because the patient has already died, like just everything. And I would have never understood what I needed to say or do I know I'm still going to go through the chaplaincy and the residency, but he instilled in me all of this wisdom. And so that's not the end of the story. So 2 days later, this is a Tuesday, and on Thursday, I'm in Target, and it's the first time I've been in Target in months, right? And it's like my happy place, and all the kids with me, it's quiet. And I get a phone call I'm involved in MOPS. It's called Mothers of Preschoolers. It's a Christian non-denominational organization. And one of the MOPS leaders, who used to be our leader, Dawn, she calls me, and I thought it had to do with MOPS. I'm like, hey, Dawn, how's it going? She goes, Deacon Jerry just had a heart attack and died.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just bawled. I got on all my knees, and I was sorry, getting really emotional, but it was like, it was really, really sad, but at the same time, I feel so blessed to have had that final conversation with him.
Wow. Yeah, we have several purposes in life, and sometimes God equips us through people, and I do believe that that was one of his major purposes before going, was to give you all that wisdom and instill that in you. Definitely that you had that opportunity. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you got all that wisdom from him, and that he was used, in a very special way, because I know that you're going to be a great chaplain. I know that God has called you for that. I mean, you cannot deny all those signs. I am a true believer in all of that. And I get signs all that time through people and through literature and through trucks and through signs on the expressway. And I talk about it all the time throughout my podcast, because it's true. That's how else can God communicate with you?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a beautiful testament to how good God is, and how God causes people and equips you, and he called that deacon to equip you and set you on your path. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I feel so bad for his family. His wife, Deanna, who is amazing. I remember Deacon saying, because he hates going to the grocery store. And he's like, his wife has stage 4 breast cancer, and she's gone through all this chemo, all this radiation, and she's a survivor. And he's like, I love my wife so much, I even go to the grocery store for her. And I'm like, Deacon, I'll go do your groceries. You're never allowed to go to the grocery store again. And so it was like, I saw a future with developing our friendship and, his mentorship. Like, I know he's been my mentor over the past 7 years in so many different ways, but I just feel like he left such a legacy to me and to so many people in our church. And when they had a memorial service, it was like a drive-through memorial service. It was beautiful. And they had bagpipes playing. All the Knights of Columbus were there. And it's heartbreaking for his wife, but his wife, she's very strong. She's been through a lot, and our church is is a very close-knit group. And so she has a lot of support, thankfully.
Well, I'm sure with a deacon as a husband, that she has heard many, many, consoling things that help her get through this. Because as a chaplain, I just I mean, that is a beautiful service. That is a beautiful, job that you're called to bless so many people with. But that is a lot of heartache and heart wrench, I think, for the chaplain. But God will make way and equip you with what you need to bear all of that. But I think of that because I think of all the patients right now that are in the hospital with COVID, and they cannot be with their loved ones. And I think somebody needs to be with them. Somebody needs to be praying with them. And like you say, like, even at the last minute, if they've never prayed or had a relationship, with Jesus, that it's never too late to just be guided towards open a conversation with him and pour out your
Mm-hmm.
heart, and ask for forgiveness, and it's done through people like you, through chaplains. And I that is a beautiful story, and I just know that you're going to do wonderful things. And so, have you started the classes yet?
Oh, thank you so much for those kind words. I've applied to various different master's programs, and I'm just waiting to figure out which one to go to based on the financial aid and the grant money and all that. But I'm leaning towards Loyola Marymount University or Colorado Christian University. But I start it's July. I start in August. So I'll be starting in August with classes. And one of the programs is only a year long, which I'm kind of geared towards. But the other program is in Los Angeles, and it's about 2-hour drive from here. And I would need to go to weekly classes. So that's LMU, which our priest went there to become a marriage and family counselor, and he talks very highly of that school, and a lot of people that go there do as well. But that's a 3-year long program. And that's one thing I wanted to mention that I remember talking to Deacon about. I was like, why do I have to get my master's? Can't I just start going to hospitals now? Like, I'm already a PA. Like, I could just go in and start saving people's souls, you know? And he's like, well, as a PA, as a, you know, a provider, he kept calling me as a physician, but he knows I'm a PA. He's like, as a PA, you are there to save people's lives and you know how to save people's airways. Like, you can easily save somebody's life, but are you ready to save somebody's soul? And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I know the Bible and I don't know it that well, but I need to be able to talk to people that are Muslim, talk to people that are Jewish, talk to people that are not believers, to get them to believe that Jesus is their savior so they can go to heaven, you know? And I feel like I'm not equipped with that yet. And I feel like it's not that I don't want to preach to people that aren't Christian, but I feel like a big part of being a daughter of God, of Jesus, is that I need to get more followers and get more believers in order for them to go to heaven. And I feel like as a chaplain that I can do that in so many different levels. And I would still work as a PA as well. But I think a big part of my mindset has changed a lot since I realized my new calling, because, you know, everybody has lots of callings throughout their life. But I feel like even now, like my patients, I might not be allowed to say, hey, let's say the rosary together. You know, like I probably can't, because I work at a children's hospital and that might be frowned upon, but I'm praying in my mind for every single one of my patients. And, you know, and I'm listening to their heart and their lungs, and I'm like praying for them. Like, I feel it's different. I feel different. I feel happier. I'm anxious still about COVID and all that, but it's a different, I feel like coming back to work, and I've been furloughed for the past 3 months. I feel like I'm at peace right now.
Yeah. And I would think that, I mean, just continue to pray and stay close to God and ask for direction, and he's going to make the way. So whatever school you're supposed to be in, you know, whatever classes, professors, your internship, all of that is, you know, when you ask God, because I do that quite a bit, there's always something that's going to stick out to you more. And sometimes we fight that because it's not what we want. You know, sometimes we're resistant to it, and we'll try to pretend like, no, that's not really what I heard. but yeah, I think that he, you know, just continuing to stay close to him, and he will make the way for you. So what does your husband think of this?
So he is very supportive, and he knows that I take on way more than I can chew. Like, if I give you a list of things I'm doing today, you would say, really? Are you really doing all that today? And I'm like, I only have one kid, and my daughter, my 2-year-old, is taking a nap right now. And I have so much more time now that the kids are in summer school. And I just feel like, you know, my priorities are a little bit screwed up. And so when I told him that I wanted to go back to become a chaplain, he's like, we need to like make a list, and you need to start checking things, or like circling the things that are the top 3 priorities and checking off all 100 other things that I'm doing. And I've been trying to do that. So like, I know I have a YouTube channel, I have a website, I have a blog, I publish articles on a weekly basis, and I sell rodent and fields. I have so many things that I do. And anytime I say it out loud, I know people think I sound crazy. So I realize that I don't want to, like, you know, do things like halfway. Like I tend to do things last minute and get it done because it needs to get done. But I think I need to just set my priorities straight. And if becoming a chaplain means that I need to cut back on time doing my YouTubing or writing, then so be it. But I think right now that's my number one thing is, of course, you know, God, my family, and then chaplaincy. But if I keep those 3 things as my priority, then, you know, everything else will work out.
Yes, definitely. So tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
So it's called PA in the AM. It's a physician assistant in the morning. I just talk about various health topics ranging in the ear, nose, and throat realm, like ear infections, snoring, and things like that. And then COVID-19 is kind of the newer things that I've discussed on there. And I do like a Venn diagram between COVID-19 and allergies, and COVID-19 and the flu, and like talk about the similarities and the differences between them. And then just like the things that I really like learning about since I was furloughed for 3 months, there was a lot of stuff that I wasn't used to doing as far as like maintaining the household. And like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We had a house cleaner come every other week, and I didn't have one for 3 months. And our house with 3 kids is always a disaster, but without a house cleaner to clean the toilets, like it was way worse than it's ever been before. So I realized, I'm like, well, if I'm going to spend all this time editing my YouTube videos, I'm going to do stuff that's going to benefit me and my family and my girlfriends and their kids, because all my MOPS friends have at least 3 kids, if not more. And so when I started doing like 10 things for 10 ways to clean or the 10 steps to maintaining a clean bathroom, or 10 steps to keeping a clean kitchen. And so when I started following the steps that I'm recommending, it makes things so much more easy. And now that I'm listening to podcasts, like your podcast, oh my gosh, I'm like cleaning the bathroom and like sobbing, like, and I feel like it makes it a lot more fun to be able to have a goal. And like, if I pick a topic, like right now, my new thing with my YouTube channel is to interview people, and I'm going to be interviewing you soon.
Yay.
And I'm excited.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah. And I love hearing other working women, working moms that are successful and have really kind of led towards their passion. And so I spoke with the other day a physician assistant dermatology PA, and her story about how far she's become, it's just very inspiring. And I've had really good feedback from my family and friends being like, wow, like I had no idea PA could do so much. And like, those are really great questions. And so I feel like it's not really, even if I don't have 1,000 followers, I think I have 61 followers. I don't know. Are you following me yet? I have 62. But, so I feel like my goal isn't to make money off of YouTube. My goal is to develop an audience for my writing, because I'm writing a memoir, and my memoir is about all my crazy experiences going from PA school all the way up, hopefully through chaplaincy, and like just talking about my call experiences and all those things. And so once I get that kind of foundation, then I can publish my book, because I don't want to publish a book and not and lose money, because it's a big investment, as you know, to write
Yes.
a book. It's a huge investment. So I'm kind of putting it on the back burner until probably I'm done with becoming a chaplain.
Wow. Well, you have a lot on your plate, like you said, but you know what? I totally get you, because ever since I started on my path, it just seems like you feel alive when you have goals and when you have so many ideas and you want to help so many people. And so it gets you up in the morning and it gets you going and you're excited about it. And so I think that it's important that we continue to grow and that we help others along the way. And that's exactly what you're doing. And and putting God into everything that we do, because like you said, even if you're just hearing a heartbeat and you're praying at the same time. I remember as a principal, I'm talking to the parent and I was praying for that parent or that child, or, and they don't know that. People don't know when we're praying for them, but God knows and God hears us. And I do think that whatever job we're doing, if we pray about it and our intention is to help others and be good, for others, then I think that that's just beautiful. That's putting God in any business, and it's amazing. So, all right. So let me just wrap up with all the places that people can find you. So if people wanted to go find your YouTube channel or your website, what would that be? And I'm also going to, as always, in my show notes, lovingwithallmyheart and soul.com. And this should be episode 37. You can find all the notes and the links for Pam. So Pam, go ahead and give us the website address and your YouTube. Where can we find you?
So my website is PamelaSalgado.com. That's SALGADO.com. And my YouTube channel is PA in the AM. And You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I have Twitter, everything. But if you go to my regular website, you can find links to everything on the bottom. And yeah, if you could please subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd appreciate it.
You know, and I'm so looking forward to following your journey, because it just sounds so amazing.
Thank you.
The you know, becoming a chaplain and just being called to do that is absolutely, I mean, that's a big calling, and you're very blessed, and God has very special purpose for you. So, and your daughter is seeing this, you know, that is